Hi, this is Chris from needlepointers.com, and today I'd like to show you how to assemble the Louisiana block. I will be cutting the pieces for this block with my Accuquilt Go cutter and dies from a 10-inch and a 5-inch Go Qube. This pattern can be made with any size Go Qube. My two blocks will be 10.5 inches and 5.5 inches square. This block is included in the 72 Block Patterns PDF that can be downloaded for free from the Accuquilt website. This booklet gives some basic instructions for assembling each block along with cutting instructions and fabric requirements. It is also included in the book Quilt in a Day, Go Qube, Mix and Match Blocks and Quilts. This book came for free when I purchased my 10-inch Qube. If you would like to see a full written photo tutorial of this block assembly, please click the link in the description of this video to go to our web page. On that page, you can find all of the instructions, including a photo tutorial and links to Accuquilt cubes, cutters, and the 72 Block Patterns PDF. We are an Accuquilt affiliate, so we will earn a commission from any purchases you make through our links. This block uses 3 dies from the Go Qube. This is my 10-inch Qube, and it uses a number 4 quarter square triangle. It uses a number 5 half square triangle and a number 8 rectangle. For the 5-inch Qube, it uses the same 3 die numbers, 4, 5, and 8. For this, you can notice that there's 4 quarter square triangles cut at once. For this one, there's 8 half square triangles cut at once, and this one has 2 rectangles cut at once. For this block, 3 fabrics are needed: a light that will cut 4 rectangles, a medium where we'll cut 8 half square triangles, and a dark where we'll cut 4 quarter square triangles. If you are making multiple blocks for your quilt, you will want to calculate how many of each shape and fabric are needed so that you can cut all of the pieces at once with your Accuquilt Go. The fabric strips needed for one 10-inch block: one 6 3/4 inch by 6 3/4 inch square from the dark fabric, one 4-inch wide strip by 16 inches long from the medium fabric, and one 6.5 inch wide strip by 12-inch long from the light fabric. To create the 5-inch block, the fabric you will need is a 4.5 inch square of the dark fabric, a 4 3/4 inch square from the medium fabric, and a 3.5 inch wide strip by 8-inch long from the light fabric. To keep this less confusing, I will be cutting and demonstrating the steps to make one 10-inch finished block. I will have the 5-inch block here to show you as I go along. This block is cut and assembled in the same way, it just uses the dies from the 5-inch Qube. If you are using quilter's cotton, you can cut up to 6 layers at once. So fold that fabric to get what you need with fewer passes through the Accuquilt cutter. From the number 4 die, cut 4 of the dark fabric for each block. Since this die cuts 4 quarter square triangles in one pass, I will lay 1 layer of fabric over the die. Place the mat over the fabric and send it through the cutter. Here are the 4 quarter square triangles cut for the block, and very little is left over. For the number 5 die, I need 8 triangles of medium fabric. This die will cut 2 half square triangles at a time. So fan fold the fabric back and forth across the cutting area into 4 layers before you send it through the machine. Place the mat over your fabric. Remember to move your mat around and use both sides to get the most use out of your mat. Send it through the cutter. And now I have 8 triangles cut. The last die is the number 8 rectangle die. The block has 4 rectangles, and this die cuts 2 rectangles with each pass through the cutter. Fold the strip in half and place it over the die. Always make sure that your fabric extends past the light gray or the other colored section and out across. Place your mat and send it through the cutter. Now 4 rectangles are cut, and we are finished cutting the pieces for one Louisiana block. Here are the pieces of the block shown how they will be assembled for both the 10-inch and the 5-inch blocks. The flying geese will be sewn together first. Then the rectangles will be sewn to the geese. Finally, the 4 quarters are sewn together into the finished block. Let's go over to the sewing machine and start to assemble this block. Thread the sewing machine with neutral thread. If you are sewing all dark fabrics together, you may want to use dark thread. I usually use a white or a cream thread to piece my blocks. I also have in a matching bobbin thread. I have my 1/4 inch foot on the machine, and I have my machine set for a straight stitch at the standard length. I have my 1/4 square triangles and 1/2 square triangles set up to sew. I will sew one side of the geese unit first onto all 4 1/4 square triangles with right sides together. Lay the 1/2 square triangle along the one side, matching the sides and edges. Chain piece the 1/2 square triangles to one side of the 1/4 square triangles with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Chain piecing is a technique where you keep sewing off the edge a few stitches, and then you start sewing the next one without cutting the thread between. You'll end up with a chain of blocks. I have this handy cutter that holds an old rotary cutter blade, and it's great for cutting apart these chain piece blocks. If you would like to get one of these, click the link in the description of this video to visit our page, and a link will be near the end of the tutorial. Next, we will iron the 1/2 square triangles open with the seam going towards the 1/2 square triangle. So set your seam first and then iron it open. Ironing the seams in the correct direction will help with assembly later. Finish the flying geese block by sewing the other 1/2 square triangle to the other side of the 1/4 square triangle. Line up the edges and sew using the chain piecing method. Go to the iron and iron these the same way, with the seam going towards the 1/4 square triangle. I'll be back after I have these ironed. Here's a visual of the finished flying geese inside the 10-inch and the 5-inch block. Next, we will flip the rectangle onto the flying geese block and then sew along the edge with the point. Sew the 1/4 inch seam. Now when you're going across the tip of the triangle, make sure that you don't sew and chop off your tip. Sew across where the X is here so that you will still have your tip on your triangle. My fabric flipped down a bit when I sewed across there, but you can see that my sewing line goes across there and it just misses the tip. So then when I fold it open, you can see that I have my tip of my triangle there. I'm going to sew all of these blocks and iron the seams towards the rectangle block, and then I'll be back to show you where we are in the block. Here you can see I've ironed the seams towards the rectangle. Here are the 4 sections laid out in the blocks. At this point, make sure you have the 4 sections oriented in the correct directions. The rectangle is towards the outside of each quadrant. Next, we will sew the last vertical seams together. So what I like to do here is these two are the same. If you flip this around, you can see the middle seam here are the same as the top one. So if you stack the blocks on top of each other, and if you're making many blocks, you can stack them like this, and then I will take these piles to my sewing machine, flip the one on top of the other, and then sew this seam for each section. Also, as part of this block, because there's two triangles that are joining together here in the corner, they will kind of interlock together because there's a lower side and a higher side, and it makes it easier to get these blocks together because those will kind of nest or interlock together. So make sure you line up the sides and you interlock these seams to get a nice points. And you line up the other side here too. I'm going to sew these seams and I'll be back. At the ironing board, press the seams in the same direction. At this point, it doesn't matter which direction they're pressed, just make sure you press them all the same direction. One last seam to sew across the middle of these blocks and we're finished. Flip the two blocks together and these seams again will interlock in the center since you press them in opposite directions. So line them up and sew the last seam across. Then we'll come back and I'll show you how to iron this last seam, which is a little different from the rest. In order to reduce the bulk when ironing the seams, I will swirl the seams. Here is one I've made and the seams are swirled. The four main seams face towards each other and go around the block. So you can see this one, this one, this one, and this one are all pressed so that they go around the block like that. To swirl the seam, the first thing you do is remove the stitches from the seam allowance in the second to the last seam that you sewed. Then open the block up. You can see this seam is going this way, this one's going this way, so this one will go like this and this one will go this way. So as you open the seams and press them one way or the other, it kind of naturally opens up and creates a swirl in the center. So I'll press this towards me and then continue across and press the other side upwards away from me. Press from the front also. After swirling the seams, if you touch in the middle, you'll notice that it's not as bulky. Always give your blocks a nice press at the end too. Here are the finished blocks. It's nice and flat and the seam in the center where the triangles all meet together isn't really bulky. We hope you enjoyed learning how to use your Accuquilt Go to cut and assemble the Louisiana Quilt Block. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like and share our videos, and if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss future videos. Visit our website, needlepointers.com, for lots of other quilting tutorials and free projects. While you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter so you won't miss new tutorials. Happy quilting!